What up, what up? Oilers Nation live. It is March 16th, Wednesday. That means we're like 5 days away from the NHL trade deadline. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, shout out to our sponsor, Sherwood Ford, the Giant. We are live on the Oilers Nation Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. Also on the Nation Network YouTube account. If you don't subscribe to the Nation Network YouTube account, what is wrong with you? Why don't you do it yet? There's a lot to get to. I have 7 things that I want to touch on today on the show. Just give me a second while I sort of check around and make sure all the live streams are working. I didn't mess anything up, which, as you know, is a rather common occurrence when I do these things. Mute myself, and we're ready to go. A big win over the Detroit Red Wings. I want to hear from you, though. Drop your comments in. Whatever you're watching on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, don't matter. Tell me what you thought of that win last night, because, I mean, it started perfectly if you're the Edmonton Oilers. Like, I tweeted it, but they were up 2-0 in that game, and Detroit hadn't even gotten the puck out of their own end without icing it yet. There was the one play where the Oilers cleared it themselves. It was a bad McDavid pass to Ceci, I think, or Bouchard. And then there was Detroit icing it. Edmonton was up 2-0. They go up 3-0 pretty quickly after. And then what happened? It was an absolute mess. Like, it was, I talked about it with Bag Milk on the Beatcast after the game last night. And it's like, I'll use like a beer league analogy, right? This happened to my beer league team the other day. You go up early and you're like, oh, it's point night, right? Everyone's talking about how many goals they're going to get. Who cares about playing at our own end? We're up by a few. Everyone wants to get in on the offense. And when you take your foot off the gas in the NHL, it doesn't really matter who you're playing against. Bad stuff happens. And bad stuff certainly happened in that hockey game. Shore, McDavid, Hyman, bang, 3-0. Even after Mark Stahl scores, he makes it 3-1. They respond late in the period. Power play goal, Kyler Yamamoto from Connor McDavid. And you're like, all right, they're good. They got that 3-goal lead back. It's going to be smooth sailing from here. Second period, it was our boy Sammy Gagner getting on the board, which was great to see. His reaction was top notch. And then it's 4-2. You're going into the third. You're thinking, geez, they better put their foot down here in the third period and really walk away with this thing. And then it just, it fell apart. Zadina, Stahl, they score. It's a tie game. Kane responds quickly. Lucas Raymond ties it right back up, and then they get a bit of a lucky bounce on that Warren Fogle goal, but I guess they needed a lucky bounce to beat the Red Wings, which isn't great. Case no 9696. They sat back. Boys need to keep their foot on the gas, and I think that's exactly what it is. You would hope that they learn a lesson in that. I kind of roll my eyes saying that because it's probably a little bit too late in the season for them to be learning lessons at this point, especially against bad teams, especially when you beat the Red Wings the Lightning and the Capitals in your two previous games and you were the better team in each of those games. Like, they deserved that win against Tampa. They probably should have won by more. Same thing against Washington. Samsonov didn't stand on his head. They probably could have won that game 6-4. And then the Red Wings game, like, really, that's the one you drop? Facebook chat. Robert King says, what up, Tyler? What's up, Robert? Chris Patterson, big win, liking Kane on the team. Yeah, I mean, Kane's been playing great. The production, they needed it, right? And you look at this team's forward group, and we're going to dig into it a little bit deeper a little later on in the show. But if they didn't have Kane and they started suffering the injuries that they did, it'd be trouble right now, right? So they're lucky that they got Evander Kane. Cap hit wise, good deal. You didn't have to give up anything to get him. We're not going to dig into the whole, will they re-sign him thing. I don't think we need to do that today. But I don't think an Oilers fan is sitting there arguing about the production from Kane on the ice. Chris in the Facebook chat, they let up and got complacent after they got a few goals and let the Red Wings get momentum. Woodcroft will use it as a good teaching moment leading into the stretch. Heather says they've done that more than once. Yeah, they have. If you want to... A positive is they got off to a good start, right? They haven't been getting off to a lot of good starts recently. So that's one positive to pull away from the Red Wings game. Going over to the Twitch chat. Benny979. What's going on, Tyler? What's going on with you? ZW Shark. What happens if the Jays pull off a Ramirez trade too? You know how badly I want to talk about that Matt Chapman and the Jose Ramirez rumors. I really do. But there's a new episode of Blue Jays Nation Radio where Coombsy and I break it all down. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. Digging through the Twitch comments here. I don't know if it picked up on TV, but when Gagne scored, the entire building was booing him. I don't think I was there. I was in the building. I did not pick up on the entire building booing Sam Gagne. I think they may have been booing the Red Wings scoring, but the entire that's false. The entire building was not booing Sam Gagne. In fact, I'm booing you for saying that. Gagne is, if anything, there was more talk on Twitter that people want Gagne back for a playoff run because it'd be a feel-good story. The Bearded Brad, Koski is not a number one goalie. Oilers need to move on. I don't think you're moving on from Koskinen now. Like, that was not a good game by any stretch. For anyone, though. Like, Mikko wasn't great, but the team in front of him was not good either. And if you go back, again, we've done this. Go back to Mikko's last 12 starts. He's been good. He's won them games in that stretch as well. He's made big saves. So he's not an everyday guy. He's not a 1A. And if that was your point, then yes, I agree. But if you move on from him at the deadline because you want the cap space, you're not running Smith and Skinner down the stretch, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. You're not bringing in anyone. Holtby's off the board because Hudobin's having surgery. He's done for the year. So Dallas isn't moving Holtby. Korpisalo sucks. Fleury's not coming here. Gorgiev is too inconsistent and too unproven. I'm not giving up. The Rangers apparently want a first or a second rounder for Gorgiev. I'm not giving up a first or a second rounder for Alex Gorgiev. I haven't heard great stuff about him. Chris, trade Archibald for Gagne. I might. I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense hockey-wise, but Gagne could play every game. Archibald can't play every game. It'd be a great, like, come on. Fan favorite, Sammy G for the playoff run? How would you not love that? But back to Koskinen, yeah, like, he's allowed to have a bad game. And again, anyone watching this, whatever you're watching it on, you've been following this team long enough. You know that you weren't going to get 20 straight good games out of Mikko Koskinen. There was going to be a bad one in there, and there was a bad one in there. But you know what? They found a way to win. Like I said, there have been plenty of times over the course of this stretch where Koskinen has stolen them a game. He's helped them win a game they did not deserve to win. Against Florida, winning effort. He stopped 44 shots in that hockey game. I thought he was good against Washington. Shutout against Philly when they didn't have their best effort then. There's one game where Koskinen didn't bring it. They managed to sneak out a win. Tons of talk about, do you re-sign him? And my boy Liam Horban, if you head over to his Twitter, he's doing a new series where basically he throws out a question and he's crowdsourcing here. He's got 38 replies on this bad boy already, but at Liam Horban, Horrobin, give him a follow if you don't already. He asked the question, do you re-sign Mikko Koskinen? And I see a bunch of people, Twitter chat, Twitch chat, asking the same thing. Do you look into re-signing him? So you have Smith signed next year, $2.2 million. And Jay Downton is going to call me right when this is done for even bringing this up again. But you could buy out Mike Smith relatively easily. Like I said, $2.2 million cap hit. Sorry, 2.2 is the initial cap hit. If you buy him out, that cap hit goes down to $500K for next season. So it's a $2 million cap savings. That's pretty good. The year after, when Smith's contract would be up, that's when you get an $800,000 cap penalty. So, 2 years from now, you lose that $800K, but you save yourself $2 million this coming year. That's a pretty appetizing buyout. And the year when that dead money would be coming on, that would be the year you lose $1.5 million of Sekera's dead money. Lucic's $750K in retained money goes off the books as well. So, I don't know. I think you could buy out Mike Smith this year, but then the question is, do you want to run Koskinen and Skinner? Skinner signed for $750K. He's got to be on the roster next year no matter what, which is why it makes it even more infuriating that they aren't playing him more now. If Mikko Koskinen would sign for 1 year, $1.25 million, and you could have Skinner Koski as your duo next season for $2 million against the cap, and that would allow you to do some pretty interesting things because you got $7 million, Clefbaum's LTIR puts you up to 11, you buy out Smith, $13 million to spend. And already signed are Nurse, Keith, Barry, Ceci, Bouchard, Broberg. Like, your 6 D-men could very well be set already for next year. Deadline could change that, I know, because you'd love to offload Barry. Up front, you already have McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Cassian, Fogle, Nugent Hopkins, Derek Ryan, Devin Shore still under contract. So you'd have $13 million to get done McLeod, Yamamoto, and Puljujarvi. Definitely enough money to do that. Probably enough money to even go long-term with 2 of those guys. And then you would have probably even enough money after that to go get a forward, whether it's bringing back Evander Kane if that's what you want to do or something else. But that's a long ways away. That's off-season talk. We'll get into that more. But the question of would I re-sign Mikko Koskinen? 1 year, $1 million, $1.25 million. And I'm open to the conversation, but I do think you also have to look at the free agent market and be like, hey, do we have the money to go get a guy like Darcy Kemper? Because if you have the money to go get Darcy Kemper, then, I think you need to look into that as well. We'll chat a little bit of deadline in just a second here, but also we got the news today that the Edmonton Oilers placed forward Tyler Benson on waivers. That's going to divide the fan base, obviously. I'm just pulling up his stats for the season here. In and out of the lineup kind of throughout the year. He ends up 29 games with the team, 1 goal, 1 assist. Travis Yost of TSN said this is a must claim for bad teams in the NHL. So, you're looking, if someone is going to claim him, it's not going to be a playoff team. Like Tyler Benson's not cracking a playoff team's roster, really. Montreal, I could see maybe doing it. Seattle, maybe Seattle would have had interest in him in the expansion draft. They ended up opting to take Larson and sign him, but maybe they take a peek at a Tyler Benson. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Arizona, I could also see. The thing is, and I get that there are a lot of Oilers fans that love Tyler Benson. I really like Tyler Benson as well. I think he deserves to be playing over even a guy like Devin Shore. I'd prefer to have Tyler Benson in the lineup. He's trying really hard to turn himself into a bottom 6 guy, right? He's trying to play scrappy. He's trying to mix it up. He's not giving you enough offense, though, I think, to stay in the lineup, and that is a concern. I don't know. I have a feeling they might lose him on waivers here, which is too bad, right? He's a second-round pick. You've invested resources into him. The crowd, the fan base generally tends to like him. He's a local guy. And like Genesis says here, I just saw it pop up on the Twitch, like the guy, but he's not producing. And I think there is maybe something to that. It's a shame. I think he deserved more opportunity. And I think with opportunity, he'll catch on. He'll be an NHLer somewhere. But Devin Shore has found a way to score 4 goals this year. Zach Kassian has 5. He's been hurt a lot. Brad Malone's barely been here. He's got a goal this year. And those guys play with the same quality of line mates that Tyler Benson did. And that's just why, it was surprising to see it on waivers, but you kind of sit there and go, okay, Woodcroft wasn't playing him. Simple as that. So if you're Holland and you want to make some room, you need to shuffle around the roster because Puljujarvi's coming back. We'll get to that in a second. Russell's coming back as well. You put down the guy who's not producing as much as everyone else. Why are so many people typing in all caps in the Facebook chat? What about Subban for Barrie? Agreed. Is the Subban for Barrie thing a possibility? Is this actually a thing? Is this a rumor or is this something we're just talking about in the Facebook chat? If you've heard that somewhere, let me know where so I can go fact check it. Is this just a random internet rumor? Okay. Travis says he's sorry for typing in all caps. You're good, Travis. But where did we hear Subban for Barrie? So Barry's got 2 more years, $4.5 million per. Subban's done after this year at a cap hit of $9 million. So the only way that deal works is if New Jersey retains half of that contract and they take back Barrie, because then it's, from Edmonton's perspective, 4.5 out, 4.5 in. I'd imagine you're giving up a pick at that point, which is probably part of the incentive for New Jersey. Mistaken Mexican in the Twitch chat says, hell no. 1 defensive liability for a worse one. I'm good. The difference is Subban's contract's done at the end of the year. You'd be bringing in PK Subban, hoping to get a couple of good months out of him, and then at the end of it, he's retiring or whatever. Dust off your hands. You're good. Someone else is saying, T-Pool. I saw something on Facebook about Subban for Barrie, 50% retained. But is it an actual thing, or are we just seeing it on... It's okay, it was on The Athletic. There was a good, funny comment in the Twitter chat. I'm not going to bring it up. We ain't trying to start social media beefs here. Subban for Barrie, 50% retained. Edmonton would have to throw in a sweetener to that. There's just no way that New Jersey does that straight up. trying to find out the source of this rumor. But I have no idea. I would do it. Edmonton would need to do a sweetener. If the sweetener was a 4th or a 5th round pick or a B- level prospect, then sure. But I don't see New Jersey doing that. Like, I look at that team's blue line. They got Dougie Hamilton. They got Damon Severson, who they're apparently shopping. They got Ryan Graves. And they have a youngster in Ty Smith. So if you're a team bringing in Tyson Barrie, it's because you want him to run your power play. Okay, well, they have Dougie Hamilton and Ty Smith to do that, right? They got their current guy signed long-term. They got a young guy who's waiting there as well. I don't think Jersey would do it. Even with a sweetener, maybe not. With Turris in the deal too, yeah. Like, I don't know. Teams aren't lining up to take your bad contracts. Someone says PK is more physical than Barrie. Yeah, like I said, it's not a bad idea from an Oilers perspective. I just really can't see ZW Shark. Ken Holland helped Chicago, so maybe New Jersey wants to help Edmonton. Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting idea, but I wouldn't hold your breath on that. We talked about Benson on waivers. I know you guys want to talk about trades, but let's talk a little line combos as well, because Jesse Puljujarvi is going to come back into the lineup tomorrow night. So what would you do? How would you roll this thing out? This is what the Oilers lined up with against Detroit. McDavid, Kane, Yamamoto. I would keep that trio together. I thought they worked really well together against Detroit. Puljujarvi practiced today on the second line. So it's Draisaitl, Hyman, who's now back over on his more natural left-hand side, with Puljujarvi on the right side. McLeod skated in bottom 6 colors. So McLeod's going to get bumped back down to the bottom 6. I actually thought he showed well in his top 6 role too. But McLeod was centering a 4th line with Cassian and Archibald. What do you think of Ryan McLeod being a 4th line center for the Oilers? The 3rd line was Shore with Ryan and Fogle. They scored a couple last games. You probably want to keep those guys together. That 4th line for the Oilers barely played. Malone, Cassian, Archibald, they were hardly on the ice. I think none of them got more than like 6.5 minutes at 5-on-5. So Puljujarvi on the second line with Draisaitl and Hyman. I kind of like that. I think that's a good look. Electronic Jordan, Malone does, and Shore back down to 4th. I would have kept Malone in the lineup. I like what Brad Malone was bringing, but again, there we go. All right, we're back. I hope you enjoy looking at the playoff picture there in the meantime. That's my bad. As you know, I'm there. I'm back. We're good. All right, let's go. I was talking about the Lions. I don't even know where I would have ended off. Now I'm all rattled. ZW Shark, I'll just take questions to transition off. Stauffer was talking about bringing in a gritty bottom 6 guy. Who comes out for a potential forward acquisition? And that's a good question. So again, your top 6 is relatively set. Kane, McDavid, Yamamoto, Hyman, Draisaitl, Puljujarvi. That's probably going to stay together. Apologies again for the technical difficulties. The bottom 6, Fogel's not coming out. Ryan's not coming out. Nuge is eventually going to be healthy and in that spot. Cassian and McLeod aren't coming out. So that when everyone's healthy, you have like one spot that you can move. It's the Archibald spot. You flip Archibald for a 5th, 6th, whatever. And then you would bring in someone to fill that void. I know Spectre mentioned Lehkonen, but like Frank Seravalli's talked about him potentially being a guy that gets a 1st-round pick for Montreal. So I don't think you're getting him. Kramer Logan, Nick Delorier coming in. I don't know if Nick Delorier does it for me either. He scraps, he's tough, but that's kind of the extent for him. I don't know if I love Nick Delorier as an option, but I could be wrong on that. I could see them moving Archibald for a 5th and bringing in someone else in the bottom 6. I don't know. I don't think they're going to bring up Holloway, so I would say it's a likely no on that. maybe they bring in a depth forward, but they actually like, are you just shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic, for lack of a better phrase, right? Like if you're going to go spend a 6th round pick on some random guy who is like maybe as good as what you have, is there a point there? If the swap is lateral, do they just go, we'll keep Archibald. We'll play him for the home games. He'll only be available for half of the playoff games in whatever series we're in, unless we get to play Calgary. Is that the route they go? I think that's a possibility. I mean, if Stauffer's saying they're in on a potential depth, gritty bottom 6 forward, then that could happen. The big area is the defense for me. I'll reference Spector's article again. He talked about Carson Soucy, and this is a guy I've talked about a lot. Talked about him last week. I think he's the best option on the market. And I don't think it's like Chychrun is the best defenseman on the market. Sherratt's a good shutdown D-man, but they're not realistic targets for the Oilers. It's just not happening. Soucy, 27 years old, from Alberta, plays good in his own end, is under team control for another year, $2.7 million. I'm all over Carson Soucy if I'm the Oilers. Would you do, I'll throw this your way, audience question, Tyson Barrie in the 2nd round pick next year for Carson Soucy? Is Carson Soucy that big of an upgrade on Barrie? I'd say yes for what the Oilers need, absolutely. And is a 2nd round pick worth losing that Barrie cap hit? I also think it is. Would Seattle do that? The thinking from their perspective, I believe, would be you're going to lose Mark Giordano, who's been one of your power play quarterbacks, so you're getting in a power play quarterback. They don't have a ton of NHL-level defensemen. Like when Giordano goes, it'll be Alexiak, Larson, Dunn. If they were to move Soucy in this deal, it'd be Alexiak, Larson, Dunn, and Barrie as kind of their top-of-the-line guys. So you'd bring in Barrie. He'd be a quality NHL or an everyday NHL D-man for you, and you'd get a 2nd-round pick in the process, which they don't have a ton of. Like, remember when Vegas went on that run around their expansion draft, and it was like, oh my God, they got like 3 first-rounders, 4 second-rounders, 5 in the 3rd round. Like, it was stupid. Seattle only picked up 1 extra pick in the next 2 years in terms of 1st, 2nd, or 3rd rounders. I think they'd be inclined to want a 2nd-round pick. I don't know. I would do that. If it was a 2nd and Barrie for Soucy, I'd do it. T-Pool says 100% yes. Genesis says they need the picks. Yep. Z-Shark says, I'd move Barrie in a pick, but not Yamamoto like Stauffer suggested. I wouldn't move Yamamoto either. If you can get rid of Barrie's cap hit, you can sign Yamamoto in the offseason, no problem. I would get Soucy just so we can say Juicy Soucy. 100%, Brad. That's a fantastic idea. I also got a trade suggestion in on my Instagram. I'm going to have to close. Sorry, Twitch. I'm going to have to close you off for a second while I check the Instagram comments. Yasher97 said, Oilers get Justin Braun. Flyers get Barrie and a 3rd. Could become a 2nd if Braun re-signs in Edmonton. So again, if the hypothetical deal here from Yasher, Oilers get Braun, Barrie, and a 3rd. That could become a 2nd if he re-signs, comes to Edmonton. I don't think Barrie is as good of a fit on the Flyers as he is in Seattle. Like, just looking at reasons to acquire, the blue line in Philly, Provorov, Ristolainen, Sanheim, and next year they're going to have Ryan Ellis back in the lineup. So I just rattled off kind of their top 4. They got a young guy in Cam York who's probably going to play full-time next season as well. Maybe I could see the Oilers being in on Braun, and I think there's been... check Ben Pope's Twitter. Sorry. Real news. Hearing Blackhawks. Whoa, holy crap. 8 minutes ago, Ben Pope. Good call. Who was that? Z-Shark. All right, let's dig into this. We are live and we are breaking down a potential move. Ben Pope, reporter for the Chicago Blackhawks, writes with the Sun-Times. Hearing the Blackhawks are making progress on a Dominic Kubalik trade with Anaheim and Edmonton being the front runners. What do we think? Dominic Kubalik. If you don't know who that is, let's jump into the background info on Dominic Kubalik. This is a guy who was a finalist for the Calder Trophy in his rookie year. He popped 30 goals with the Hawks that season. He's 26 years old, 6'2", 180 pounds. He's got some size. Like I said, rookie season, 30 goals in 68 games. Last year, 17 goals in 56 games. This year, down year, 11 goals in 61 games. I need to read a little bit more on Ben Pope's piece here. Also need to have a sip of my coffee. This is interesting. Pope talks a little bit about the Oilers and Capitals being logical suitors for Fleury, but he says the Oilers aren't seeking anything. I should just search Oilers in this whole article and see what he has. Dominic Kubalik is probably the most likely Hawks player to be traded before the deadline. The Hawks don't see him as a part of their future, but a change of scenery could revive him. The Ducks have been interested in Kubalik for a while, per sources. He's also been linked to the Oilers. He also touches Calvin DeHaan is probably the second most likely Hawk to be traded. Gritty experience, pending UFA defenseman. I just don't know what the Oilers, what that deal looks like. It's like we just kind of talked about, their forward group looks pretty set. And again, like Bearded Brad says, if I don't hear it from Frank, I don't believe it. And Frank, we trust. It does just say that them, along with the Hawks, could potentially be finalists for for Dominic Kubalik. What are you giving up to get this guy? What would Chicago want? He's having a down year, but there's no denying there's upside, and he's a young guy. But are you going to have to give up like a Yamamoto in the process? I don't know if I love Mistaken Mexican. What if it was DeHaan, Kubalik for something like Yamo, Barry in a second? Even Yamo and Barry for DeHaan and Kubalik. I think that's fair. I don't know if you even have to give up a second. Rel Turner says Chicago pushing for a Bison King. Who else? If Ken Holland trades Jesse Puljujarvi for Dom Kubalik, this fan base is going to erupt. Not in a good way. Jeff says Keith, LOL. Yeah. Chris says journalists in his native country have been saying Edmonton is a front runner for a while. Yeah, I think that is correct. Eric Duhatschek was the one that picked up on that from The Athletic, but I think there were writers in Czechia who said the Oilers were linked to Kubalik for a while, which is interesting how they would have figured that out, because you would imagine the sources there would be on Kubalik's side. So, like, were the Oilers talking to Kubalik himself? Like, how does that get out? I don't know. That's interesting, though. Thanks for pointing that out in the Twitch chat, because I wouldn't have picked up on that. Ben Pope saying the Oilers and Ducks are finalists for Dominic Kubalik. That'll be an interesting one. If they go get a young forward, you would imagine someone's out the door. What's his contract? I think he actually makes like a decent amount. He should be a pending RFA. He makes 3.7 this year, pending RFA with arb rights. So, I mean, you're just under $4 million is probably his qualifying offer, or right around $4 million. Interesting. Maybe they would take Zach Kassian back in the deal. He's played well, though, the last couple games. I wonder if the Oilers have maybe soured on the idea of just offloading him. But with his contract, you would imagine, like, you could replace Zach Kassian at the deadline. Will says maybe they could pull a 3-team trade where the Oilers get Kubalik and another piece. I mean, the 2 pieces from Chicago alone, if you get DeHaan in this deal, then maybe it changes things a little bit. Kramer, Logan, Kassian out the door for him, hopefully, but we're such a soft team. Yeah, that's not even enough, though, right? At that point, you're probably throwing in a pretty high pick into that deal to get Kubalik. He does fit the description of a guy under team control, someone who can help for years down the road. Like, this would be an Athanasiou-esque kind of acquisition, in my opinion. Basic Nick, which over 30 D-men will Holland overpay for this year? I still think I love Soucy. I like DeHaan. He's got really good underlying numbers. Soucy's good. DeHaan's good. I do think, kind of like the Instagram trade proposal that we read off said, I think Justin Braun is the most likely. But the interesting part with Braun, again, is that he's a right shot. So are you comfortable with him playing on the left side? I don't know. I mean, the Oilers pro scouts would have to figure that out if he's a guy capable of playing the left side. Or are you moving out Barrie in the deal, right? Logan says Kubalik will be the overpay. T-Pool 11 says Cassian, Barrie, and a second for DeHaan and Kubalik. I don't think that's enough now, if I'm being honest. Like Cassian, you'd imagine, is somewhat close to being a negative asset. And there's really no reason why Chicago, who's not going to the playoffs, would be like itching to get that guy right now. Yeah, I don't think Chicago does that. But if it's Yamo Barrie in a second, I'm not sure if the Oilers do that. Losing the Barrie deal would be sweet. But Logan says Kulak, not Kubalik. Yeah, I could see Kulak being a fit here as well. Left shot D-man. He's like, he would be a Kulikov level deal, would Kulak be, right? You're talking a 5th round pick, I think, for that guy. Especially look at the market. Like, I mean, Florida wanted to get a second a couple weeks ago for Frank Furchano. They had to settle for a 4th. 2 rounds later. Like, that is a lot lower than what they were setting their sights on earlier, right? Chris says run Broberg and Braun if you get them. Yeah, but then again, you're either running 7D and Barry's the 7th guy, or you're healthy scratching Barrie or Bouchard, which, well, they better not do. I don't know. I just think if you're going to get a righty like Braun, you need to have a righty going out the door. Barrie, I don't know if they like him or if Philly would take that. Or do you have to overpay just to get out of Barry's deal? Probably. I don't know. It's interesting. The Kubalik thing now, that's twice from 2 different sources that we've heard, from 2 different writers, I should say, that we've heard Kubalik and Edmonton. So, I don't know. We'll see what's going on in the Twitter chat. A. Gelati, do you think it could be a part of a bigger deal to get Fleury? I doubt it. Like, we haven't heard anything about Fleury really being willing to go anywhere. So, I don't know. I doubt it. Awkward part about having no co-host is that when I go to drink my coffee, you all just have to sit there and listen to me drink it. Very weird. Daryl, we already touched on the Subban for Barrie thing. Kind of decided that it didn't make a ton of sense for Jersey, unless Edmonton throws in a sweetener. It's an interesting rumor, though. It is an interesting rumor. We've been going for like half an hour, 33 minutes already. Holy. Touched on the Spectre article. Yesapul Yarvi and Chris Russell expected to be back tomorrow. Broberg is going down to the minors. So Broberg reassigned. That makes room for Chris Russell to come up. Mike Smith's going to get the start tomorrow. Don't really know what to expect out of that. I kind of know what I'm expecting out of that, but maybe one of those last chances for Mike Smith. He's had a couple last chances, though, huh? Moving in, let's look at the playoff picture here. Take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard and see what's going on there. There is the current playoff picture with the Oilers' remaining head-to-head games against those teams still to come this year. March 22nd against Dallas. That comes the day after a game against Colorado as well. That's a tough win. You got 1 against LA, 2 against LA, 1 against Anaheim, 1 against Nashville, 1 against Vegas, 1 against Vancouver, 1 against Dallas as well. You look at those standings, the out-of-town scoreboard has been very kind to the Edmonton Oilers recently. Vegas can't grab a win. They're floundering. They've won just 4 out of their 14 games since Jack Eichel came into the lineup. Nothing really going on the out-of-town scoreboard tonight. There's only 4 games in the NHL. Boston's in Minnie. Columbus is in Ottawa. Seattle's hosting Tampa. Calgary's hosting Jersey. So nothing to watch tonight on the out-of-town scoreboard, which means this really won't move that much, the current playoff picture you're looking at. Edmonton, they are 2 points up on the Vegas Golden Knights with 2 games in hand. You win those games in hand, I mean, you're laughing at that point. You're 6 up on them. Even if you were to lose that head-to-head game, you're 4 up on them at that point. It's hard to make up that ground, which is 1 head-to-head game. They're now just 4 points back of the LA Kings, and they have 2 head-to-heads against the Kings. I'm telling you, it is not out of the question that the Edmonton Oilers have home ice in round 1. And how nice would home ice advantage be for a series against the LA Kings? Because I think that's a team they can beat. You want to talk about the Oilers not having great goaltending? LA's goaltending has been super average as of late. That would be a good series for Edmonton. I'd like that matchup. But we'll see. Obviously, still a lot of hockey left to go. 22 games left for the Oilers. They play Buffalo tomorrow. Like I said, Schmitty is getting the start. Bearded Brad. So if Smith wins, is everyone going to be brainwashed on the Mike Smith train? I won't be. He needs to have more than one good game. T-Pool, if Smith cared about the organization at all, he retires after Buffalo if he sucks. We'll see. Like he did have good numbers in that game against Carolina a few weeks ago, but one good start from Mike Smith, 4, 8, 12, 15, 17 goals against in his last 5 starts. So 3-point-something goals against average. He needs to be much better. And the other thing in those games, like Carolina, he only allowed 2 goals. 1 got called back for the offside or goalie interference or whatever it was. Against Montreal, 2 got called back. So 17 goals against in his last 5, but he's also had 3 goals that have beaten him but get called back. So it's, you can almost say 20 goals against in his last 5. That's not good. He needs to have more than one good start. If you play him and he plays well, I think they go back to him Saturday in another pretty easy matchup, or what should be an easy matchup for this Oilers team against New Jersey, matinee on home ice. I could see them going Smith back-to-back and then Koskinen against Colorado. Or you just start a rotation, right? Smith against Buffalo, Koskinen, New Jersey, Smith, Colorado, Koskinen, Dallas. And that's how you divvy up the next 4, which isn't a terrible plan either. But tomorrow against Buffalo, it's another winnable game. They've won 3 in a row. Should get rolling. You had a bit of a scare against Jersey. You need to put that behind you, though. Find a way to come out with the win. Simple as that. Z-Shark, Dano on McDavid and Kopitar on Draisaitl will be a really tough matchup with playoff reffing. Yeah, that's true. But I do like T-Pool's response. They got Nuge driving the third line. Don't forget how important that third line was when Woodcroft first took over. It was scoring, and that's going to be big. Like, depth is what's going to win you playoff series. And goaltending as well. The Oilers don't have great goaltending. I'm just saying the LA Kings also don't have great goaltending. Like, if you're going up against Vegas, I'd be nervous about a healthy Robin Lehner stealing a series. I'm not really nervous about a healthy Jonathan Quick or a healthy Cal Peterson, right? Chris says, how many games would you need to have before you get a bit of faith again? That's in regards to Mike Smith. 3? Like, if he can rattle together 3 good starts, and I'm not saying like 3 straight shutouts or 3 straight games with 1 goal against. Like, if he can give 3 games where he's only allowing 1 to 3 goals in regulation, kind of like the run Koskinen went on, if Smith can show he's capable of stringing together a few good ones, I'll have the conversation about him being back and maybe jumping back on that train, but I don't think it's likely. Granted, I also said 4 weeks ago they should put Koskinen on waivers, so maybe don't come to me for goaltending advice. Goaltending with LA is a wash. LA has better D, but Oilers have the edge at forward if everyone is healthy. I think I agree with that. LA's D is, I mean, they are getting Edler back. They do have Doughty. Oilers don't really have a piece like Drew Doughty, although I'm a big Darnell Nurse fan, even though he hasn't been playing great. Right now, they're running Oli Mata, Jordan Spence, Christian Wolanin, Sean Dursey, Jacob Moverar. I've never heard of that guy. Austin Strand, and they're banged up, right? So they're missing Sean Walker. I don't think he's coming back, though. They're missing Edler. They're missing Doughty. They're missing Mikey Anderson. So when those 3 are there, their blue line's all right. I don't think it's miles ahead of the Oilers, though. Like Vegas, again, you go to that Vegas comparison, Vegas's D is miles ahead of the Oilers. Pietrangelo, Martinez, Theodore, 3 studs. LA has a couple of good D-men. But I think that'd be Edmonton's best matchup in round 1, in my opinion. Home ice against the LA Kings. John in the Facebook chat, what about Kubalik from Montreal for a second rounder and Barrie? He can log hard minutes down the stretch. I know it was just this year, but it's a down year. Wouldn't cost the team too much more than his $1.875 million he cost this year. I think that's almost too much to give up. Dumping Barrie's contract, though, would make that interesting to me, but I think you could do that for a third and Barrie for Kulak. Final offer. Who says no? Someone call Kent Hughes. Rel Turner. I think Smith showed too much smirk when it was 5-5. Ego shot. I didn't see that because I was at the game, but that would be on brand. T-Pool, Vegas is a completely different team if they make the playoffs. Absolutely they are. Absolutely. I'd be really worried about that group going into the playoffs. They strike me as a team that once they figure it out, they'll figure it out. Like, they're deep. Leonard's a legit goalie if he can stay healthy. But right now, it's not looking like they're going to make the playoffs. they're technically, if you sort by points, they're in a playoff spot now. But if you sort by points percentage, which is what you should be doing, they're behind Dallas, they're behind Vancouver. They're behind the Vancouver Canucks. It's terrible what's happening to the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, hilarious from an Oilers perspective. Terrible for Vegas. We're going to wrap this up here in just a second. Oilers Nation Live every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I got time for a few more questions, though. Honestly, I'm putting off other work, if we're being honest. This is more fun than doing some of the other stuff I have to do today. But my laptop battery is at 10%, so you get that much more time in today's show. Big Oiler fan here. Thoughts? How can you sign Kane, Yams, and Pool Party with no cap? Sign 2, trade 1 this year is my opinion. I laid that out a little bit earlier. I think with Clefbaum on LTIR, and if you buy out Smith, you could sign both Yamamoto and Puljujarvi and get the other little roster stuff you have to do done. Evander Kane's the one, like, you might just get outbid for him. Like, I could definitely see the Oilers sitting there and being like, hey, we'll give you 2 years by $3.5 million, and some other team being like 3 years by $4.5 million, and Kane's just going to chase the bag, right? Don't blame him for that either. This was supposed to be a 1 year, you help us, we help you, good mutual relationship, kind of like Tyson Barrie was a year ago. We'll see if Ken Holland is disciplined enough to walk away, or if he gets into a bidding war and signs Kane to a bad contract, like he did with Tyson Barrie, because we've been sitting here now, 42 minutes into the show. Oh, we're getting more breaking news here. Let me just... Pierre LeBrun is reporting both sides, San Jose Sharks' Thomas Hertl, are working to finalize an 8-year extension via Pierre LeBrun. That is the number 2 name on Frank Saravalli's trade target board. Tomas Hertl apparently finalizing an 8-year deal to stay in this with the San Jose Sharks. I bet you that AAV starts with an 8. 8x8 straight up. Maybe I'm off. I'm not great at guessing contracts. But Tomas Hertl staying put in San Jose. That's man. What is San Jose doing? What is their plan? Also, to whoever said I should plug in my laptop, I'm out of ports. I have one port that goes to a monitor, one that goes to the Rodecaster. I cannot plug this in while I do anything live. Hertl, 28 years old, making $5.6 million right now. I mean, if you want to try turn it around quick and do like an LA Kings style or a New York Rangers style retool instead of a full-on rebuild, then yeah, you re-sign Hertl. But with that blue line aging the way it is in San Jose, I'm not sure if this is a quick turnaround for them. I'm still not super sold on their goaltending. It's all right, though. I don't know. I just think a package where if you could have gotten a first and a prospect for Hertl, you can always go sign someone in free agency with that money you just spent on him. And then you have the assets and you find a way to get a good player. Like San Jose shouldn't have a problem attracting free agents. But Pierre LeBrun reporting an 8-year deal coming down the pipe between the Sharks and Tomas Hertl. Turner, who pairs better with McDavid, Hyman or Kane? It's a wash. They're both talented enough, good enough to play with Connor McDavid. I honestly don't think there's much of a difference there. T-Pool, San Jose should clean house. I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't think that would have been a bad thing for them. Someone on Facebook asking about John about the Rogers Place blueprints behind me. I got them on Etsy, and then I got the frames myself, actually. So if you just go on Etsy and type in like Rogers Place blueprint, and then I have a Blue Jays one up top as well. If you just type that in, it kind of pops up, and they have a bunch of different sizes. I think you can get like big ass ones too. They're neat though. Thank you. Kylie, rumblings of Kubalik to Edmonton. We touched on that earlier. It was wild, Kylie. You should have been here. Got a little bit of breaking news live on the show. It was fun. You want another rumor? Cleveland Guardians reporter saying Jose Ramirez is staying in Cleveland. How about that? Jays get Chapman. Ramirez stays put in Cleveland. Not that many of you care about that. Trade Jesse, First, and Samurakov for Chikrin. I don't want to give up Jesse. I'm good. And I don't think... Chikrin will cost a lot, though. Talking about the Sharks. I think Holland is too stubborn to make a move within a year of signing it. Yeah, that wasn't about the Sharks, sorry. Maybe, but I think if sometimes you got to cut bait. And where I'd argue with you a little on that is he did let Athanasiou walk, right? If he was real stubborn, he would have just given Athanasiou whatever he wanted, and they would have made it work. But he didn't. He didn't want to overpay Athanasiou, and that was a few months after, like 8 months or whatever, after giving up 2 seconds for the guy. He let him walk, so interesting. All right, we got to wrap this thing up because my laptop's almost dead. Sorry, everybody. Maybe I'll do another one of these on the weekend, though. Daily Face-Off Trade Deadline Special. That is coming up on Monday. I'll be live for 3.5 hours with Frank Saravalli, Chris Gear, Chris Peters, Mike McKenna, Scott Burnside, Pete Blackburn from Bali Sports is going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So tune into that on Monday. Maybe I'll go live, like a special Oilers Nation live presented by Sherwood Ford. Shout out to Sherwood Ford for sponsoring all the trade content. Maybe I'll do one on like Saturday or Sunday. Get ready for the deadline. Also going to have a giant pregame show tomorrow with Caroline and one on Saturday at a special time live at noon Mountain for the Oilers versus Devils. So lots of live content coming up. Maybe we'll even talk a little bit more Blue Jays. Hey, why not? Have a good one, though. Thanks for tuning in. I'll chat with you again next week or sooner. Whatever. Peace.